heavens declare the glory work of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is going out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it. There is nothing hid from the heat thereof. The law of the I Am is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the I Am is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the I Am are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the I Am is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the I Am is clean, enduring forever. The judgment of the I Am are pure and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than the honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from secret faults. Keep back thy servant from presumptuous sins, and let them not have dominion over me. Then shall I be upright, and I shall be innocent from all the great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Yahuwah, strength and my Redeemer. Psalms chapter 119. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits who have swayed the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish thou me in my seed, that we go not astray henceforth and forevermore. Jubilees chapter 12 and verse 20. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, those of you on YouTube. Yes, on this platform, YouTube platform. Yes, we thank God for you, and you. And also we thank God for those who have made it through the latest hurricane and adverse weather. Those of you who might be hearing the sound of my voice in different regions, over there in Tel Aviv, and those of the Lebanese, God wants all of us to follow his statutes, commandments, ordinances, and laws. Although they're created for the whole world, they were here even before the flood. Even in the beginning of mankind was his laws established. Even among the heavenly beings, the angelic beings, the messenger beings, which you would call them, yes, they were established even in that realm. But yet mankind have been deceived many times. God has a chance. He's going to give man a chance. He's going to clear his mind. Once he take away that which is causing man to stumble. But that which causes man to stumble is because of man's own desires. See, you have to realize, Adam did not have no desire for the things that God told him not to do. He had no desires to eat of the tree of good and knowledge, or should I say, good and evil. The knowledge of good and evil. No, he had no desire for those things. Not until Eve came. Because his desire was for Eve more so than what God had said. So the fact is, we can see the secret of women are revealed. And we men have to govern ourselves accordingly, knowing this, that we have to stand strong in our convictions toward the Most High. We really do. We have to stand strong, because not all, but many women are led by their sight, and many men have been led right along with them. The sight of a short skirt, the sight of eyelashes. Oh, I look so pretty and beautiful. I mean, it's all kind things, and you men have been led that same way not only by your sisters and your wives and girlfriends, but even by your own mothers. What makes you look good? What makes you attractive? That shouldn't be no concern of you. To be clean and have a certain standard about yourself is good. But to go overboard is effeminate. And this is what they mean by femininity. But nevertheless, we thank God for you, and you. And we're still in the book of 1 Samuel. The book of 1 Samuel. Yes, as the world begins to turn, as situations in God's plan of the world for mankind is getting ready to culminate, as things are starting to boil up. You notice it's only with a certain group of people. A certain group, a hue of people, I'll put it that way. And you notice the African nations are basically, except for the Sahel, have come to light that they are men. As far as these other ones down in different lands, that they still look at the colonizer as God, as the one that can be their savior. You have those even in the Sahel says, we be men, as we once were. The black man was man, period. Rough, just there, taking authority, taking that, and women actually feared him. He was that, what you would call that toxic maleness. He was the one not afraid of death, neither afraid of life nor pain. This was the original male. And this was the way we were. But when the commandment came, we died. When we began to go against what God had for us, we died. We became lighthearted. We became faint-hearted, even at the sight of things, as it is shown right there in the historical account of your ancestors, Jacob. Not only your ancestors, but also the black man, period. Through Egypt, how you became lighthearted. There was one time where you were actually, you were just the man's man. And there are different parts of Africa, like Somali and all the other places near the cataract, Ethiopia, and different places. Now, these lands were not so back then, but the fact is, in those territories, men were men. We're not talking about the Caucasian man and his historical account of himself. We're talking about the black, so-called black man, the dark brown man, two black men, a man's man. One that ruled his family with great authority, even nations and cities, and even his own spirit at one time. Now we're brought to nothing and just getting off our feet from crawling because of our sin toward the Most High. God had a lot of great things that he wanted to do for man at that time, but he handed it over to another group. And they're convinced that they are this and they're that. We have no animosity against them, but we say that you're not all that, my man. You're not all that. You're no better than us. You're just walking in your fear, period. Regardless of how bad you are and how murderous you are and how deceitful you are, you're walking in your fear. How brave and so superhero-like you try to present yourself, you're walking in your fear. Because one thing about the law, it casts out all fear. The law, commandments, statutes, and ordinances of the Most High casts out all fear, because your hope is not in the beggarly elements of the world, the materialism, and all these other things. Your hope is in God. Even in your New Testament, it says, hope thou in Yahweh. Yes. In the book of 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel, I believe we're in chapter 18, if I'm correct. Let me, as you prepare, I think it's chapter 18. Sometimes I get so, I'm sorry, it's chapter 17. Yes, chapter 17. Yes, chapter 17, I believe. Yes. It's 1 Samuel chapter 17 as you prepare. Yes. And now here we go with a man after God's own heart. A man that truly loves God. But yet there's flaws to him too, as we shall soon find out. But as a youth, this man was very in love with the way of the Most High. He was taught from a child the law, statutes, commandments, and ordinances of the Most High. And it reads, "Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shochoh, which belongeth to Judah." I want to tell you something about this map that they have right now. This map was really, these maps that you see, today's maps, were actually changed as soon as the takeover in 1948. All the Israeli things were put up, even the ancient maps that they try to show. Jerusalem is mentioned in, before Jerusalem even became of Jerusalem, it was written in the book of Jasher. The king of Jerusalem was not an Israelite. He was a Canaanite. Where they see this Jerusalem on that mountain is not Jerusalem. Jerusalem is on a mount, or should I say a hill. There was no such word as a hill back then, but a mount. At that time, there was a mount. And this mount was on the sides of the north side of that valley that was surrounded by mountains, as we shall see in the book of Kings. And there was a stream that came out from out of Jerusalem that fed the valleys and rivers. Just fed the valleys, and everything just drained into the Red Sea. This Jerusalem here is what they call Tel Arad. You need to really do your study and your due diligence on Tel Arad. They can't make that up. No, you can't make that up. But the Jerusalem that you see today is a paganistic Jerusalem that they have taken. For what reason, I don't know. I guess it's for Baal worship or whatever. But if you move everything down about 100 miles or so many miles, you're going to have where you get to where Jerusalem is actually where it is. That is what they call Tel Arad or Jebus. They even call it Canaan. Now, these are Arab people. These Arab people are the same thing, and all the Shemites. This was the same thing. This is where it was, period. Arad was a black king, a black Canaanite king. Yes. But you let them tell it. But these are all what God had allowed. Because you have to realize, when God changed it over to confuse you. He caused you to be confused. He wanted you to be confused because God is that angry with you, Jacob. He's brought things upon you. He's allowed things upon you that would even defeat you, but he still has mercy upon you, and you've yet to acknowledge him in all your ways. You still have this Jesus and these Yahushais and Yahushas, or whatever you want to call it. You call yourself coming out, but you're only getting deeper. Come out. Become that man and that woman that God would call for, even those of your ancestors. It's all written in the book. They have patterned themselves after your way. All the way from Hezbollah, all the way unto Morocco. These people that God have replaced you with have patterned their ways, the ways that they do things, the kissing of the jaws and the huggings and just the male camaraderie. There ain't no gay stuff in that, should I say, to put it directly. There's nothing effeminate about it, to put it correctly. These things are so. Because if you got in those countries and you call yourself doing the thing and you funny about yourself, you know what's going to happen? Right then and there, you're going to be stoned or burned, one of the two. Don't go for that stuff. No. Man don't burn in his lust toward one another there. See, God has a way. See, you started doing these things, Israel, at one time. If you wasn't doing it, God wouldn't have set the commandment for you. They were doing it in Egypt. It was all these deviant ways were done even amongst black people before it was even, we can acknowledge it, even amongst the whites. Just call a buck and be real about it. Come out from among them. Change your ways. Because God is not going to be merciful to you after you die at all. And let us continue. It says, now, which belongeth to Judah, I'm in the first verse, and pitched between Soko and Azekah and Ephedamim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together, pitched by the valley of Elah, set the battle in array against the Philistines. In other words, we're going to set up, not like the colonial things. It's something like that, but the colonial setups in battles of array was set up after the Greco-Roman battles. You had your spears and your bows in the back and all that crazy stuff. It was nothing but whoever can shoot the straightest. If you hit them all, they all would fall. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. In other words, we both looking at each other. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath. It's set up. Here you set up on high places on both sides, and you come down and you can look down into the valley. Yes, the valley of Elah is what they were doing, looking down in the valley of Elah. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath. Well, he was named after this, where he lived. And thus his height was 6 cubits and his span. 6 cubits. A cubit is probably from your hand to your elbow, which is about 2 feet, 6 cubits. He's about 12 foot tall. Tall, giant of a guy. I mean, 12 to 16 feet, I would say. Tall. And he had a helmet of brass, and his head he was armed with a coat of mail. And the height of his coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. Wow. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs and a target of brass between his shoulders. In other words, there was brass right here for his shoulder to keep spears from piercing him. And the staff of his spears was like a weaver's beam. A weaver's beam, yes. The weaver's beam that goes in and out. In and out. In order to bring the threads, you sort of have to just come like that in a way. It has to crisscross the threads, and it was just a weaver's beam. Depending on the length of the garment, the weaver's beam had to be very long because a person had to catch it on the other side and then bring it across again. Now, let's continue. Now, he says now, and his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron. Like I said, shekel is a European weight, a measure of weight. And nothing that they give those in Africa or anywhere else is equivalent to that weight in whatever, in gold or whatever. It's just a piece of paper or whatever they give you. It's not worth nothing. Same thing as the dollar or any other paper monies. What is it backed by? Is it backed by, if $1 equal 1 shekel of gold, where is the gold? The same thing as your dollar. An ounce of gold is a few thousand, and whereas somebody give you a few $1,000s, you have to go buy your ounce of gold instead of, because it's really worthless. Just that dollar. There are many printed dollars. And one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine? His pride. His pride, just like the wrestlers that you see on your WWF programs. They holler out in their pride, but yet it's just a show though. And ye servants of Saul, choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then we will be your servants. God says, I got something for you, boy. Because a boy can be just as big as Goliath and still be a boy. Doesn't matter. It's the maturity and wisdom of that person that makes him responsible, and his age makes him elderly. An elder is the oldest one among the people, or the eldest ones among the people, not the youngest. You cannot acknowledge an elder to be a 20-something-year-old when you got 50-year-old wise people there, or 70 or 80. He can be a leader, but not an elder. And he looks to the elder to guide him and help him and give him advice. Yes, this happens. Even if you set one amongst in your different organizations, there has to be elders there, because what? The old know the way. Think about it. Now, if he be able to fight with me and kill me, we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then ye shall be our servants and serve us. Why do they want them to serve them? Why do they preserve the life of Israel, the children of Jacob? I ain't talking about those over there that's now making havoc of the world. I mean, it's not that God is on their side. It's just the fact that it's just foolery going on. God's getting ready to do something, and we yet to find out what he's doing. It hadn't culminated yet. Then God is going to do something else. It's going to go to another step further. And that land will be free to have its Sabbath. And then, yes. I'm going to leave it at that sigh right there. But either way, he said, and kill me will be your servant. Verse 10. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. In other words, your God is no good. And give me a man that we might fight together. I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer for a long time. I see the games and some of these big, should I say, sort of hideous creatures of big mass muscles and all these things, and you have this little puny man comes with his big weird weapons, and it's kind of funny sometimes. Their little magic secret powers that they call themselves have, and you know, these are fantasies of men. But this man was a real man, and he had the strength of an ox. And when Saul and all the Israel heard those words in verse 11, the words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was that son of that Ephrathite. In other words, he still was of the tribe of Judea. He was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse. Yes, an Ephrathite. His grandmother, yes, she was a Moabite. And he had 8 sons, and the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. A man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to battle were Eliab, and the firstborn, and the next unto him was Abinadab, and the third was Shammah. And David was the youngest of the 3 elders. Followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. This is the province of Judah. It's Bethlehem was really not that far from Tel Aviv. You could see it just by looking from the hill. Bethlehem basically was a burial place. People were buried in Bethlehem. Yes. And the Philistines drew near morning and evening and presented itself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now thy brethren an ephah of this parched boiled corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp of thy brethren. 18. And carry thee 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how the brethren fare, and take their pledge. They had corn and cheese. No, it's not like the American cheese that you eat and these cheddar cheeses. I don't know what that cheese tastes like, but it was a cheese that they made from cow's milk or goat's milk. Could have been goat cheese. So he said, carry these 10 cheeses. He says now in verse 19, Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Eli fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with their keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion of the Philistines of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and was so afraid. But the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel he is come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. In other words, this man's going to be dressed. David was he was a young man. Many in that day would call him a boy. Yes, because he was young, maybe in his 20s, early teens or whatever, or late teens or something in that area. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? In other words, David said, You saying our God is no good. God has given us this land. We have taken it over. And now you come to defy the armies of Jacob, the children of Jacob, Israel, whom you call Israel? Now, let's get this thing right. He was really upset. A man who really believed that God is the king of Israel over anything, and taketh away the reproach from Israel. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Now that was a big thing, to be circumcised. He should defy the armies of the living God. In other words, this is a young, zealous boy, or young man. He had knowledge. He understood God in the way that he should understand him in his laws, statutes, commandments, and ordinances, which should be the first thing a person learns at their youth. What does God require of you? Then you can learn the histories, yes. And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, the elder's brother, had heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, that he said, Why camest thou hither? With whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and thy naughtiness. He said, This is a stubborn guy of thy heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said unto Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight him, but thou art but a youth. In other words, you're a young man, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, thy servant keep his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went after them and smote them and delivered it out of his mouth when he rose against me. And I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. In other words, David had a very vivid excursion with these animals. Nothing like you would see in a cartoon. No, it was a real excursion. Blood and bone and everything being torn. This man was not no wimp. He was not no sissy. He was not no effeminate. But he was responsible and he believed on his God. Yes. And I went out after him and I smote him and I delivered it out of his mouth. In other words, he cared for that lamb. Saying something about David. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. And the servant slew both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. And David said, moreover, the I am that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, I will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistines. Now you have to realize back in those days there were lions and bears in that part of Africa, which we call, or which they call, the Arabian part or the Middle East. That was the land of Shem. Okay? Now, verse 38. I'll try to expedite this. And Saul armed David with his armor and put an helmet of brass upon his head. He also armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off of him. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook. Now what God gives you to work with is what you work with. Or you be just like Joseph, depending on a man to remember you or a man's thing to save you. David did right in this thing. That he depended on the God. He didn't need no coat of mail to battle the lion, neither the bear. But the Most High delivered him in that he gave him strength and he gave him bravery and he gave him a strong heart to deal with this lion and this bear. Yes. I cannot go with these. In verse 39 I am. For I have not proved them. David put them off of him. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even a script, and his sling in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine. It wasn't a sling shooter. It was a sling. And he was good at it. He knew those things. And the Philistine came and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth. This young, skinny, ruddy man, and ruddy, and of a fair countenance. I guess he might have did like some of them, give him that little kiss, like, you just a baby, get out of here. And the Philistine said unto David, I am a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. And the Philistine said unto David, come to me, and I will give thee thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and the beasts of the field. And then said David unto the Philistine, thou comest with me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of Yahuwah. He didn't say no Jesus. He said Yahuwah, Yahweh, or whatever you call his name in your language. Yes. He said, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. The armies of Israel is the heavenly host. The armies of Israel, the armies of, should I say, Jacob, the children of Jacob, because I am not talking about those who occupy Israel at this time. I'm talking about those who were there from the beginning, who are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes, and their descendants. Yes, this is what I'm talking about. And 46. This day will the I am deliver thee into my hand. Look, a young man with a sling and a smooth stones, and he's ready, and he's whatever. I mean, he was a brownish, reddish looking boy. Yes. And it says, now, I will give the carcass of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowl of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, and all the earth may know that there is a God in Jacob, a God among the children of Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the I am saveth not with the sword and spear, for the battle is the I am's, and he will give it into our hands. Yes, the God of the children of Israel will rid Israel of the varmint that's in it now. Yeah, I call it varmint, because God said it would be just desolate, with doleful creatures. All this other stuff that they have done to the land and defiled it in many ways. It had not even had a good Sabbath. Now, where the temple is had a real good Sabbath, rest, but the rest of it haven't. But this here shows not a faint heart. Now this here excited the Most High, that David, this young David, should stand in confidence in his God. This is the confidence we must have in the Most High, regardless, defying what we see, cleaving to what we don't see. Yes. And we're going to continue. And all this assembly shall know that the I am saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the I am's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass, when the Philistine rose and came and drew nigh to David, that David hastened and ran toward the army to meet the Philistines. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone, and slang it and smote the Philistine in his forehead. The thing said, just like a bullet, I would imagine, that the stone sunk in his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistines with a sling and a stone, and smote the Philistines and slew him, but there was no sword in the hand of David. This was all by direction of the Most High. He does things not according to our understanding. This boy didn't go according to his understanding. He did not lean to his own understanding, but he acknowledged the Most High in all his ways at this time. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, drew it out the sheath thereof, and slew him. In other words, he stabbed him in his neck. This was a bloody situation according to you liberals. To you, no. It doesn't work like that. It's real. Very real. This is more, you talk about your Halloween, this is more realer than your fake and your fear-mongering of yourselves, trying to scare yourself with this hideous death. You can go around slaying other folks, but when it comes to your own slaying, you're just like an old coward. And cut off his head therewith. Yes, he cut off his head, a bloody head hanging in his hand. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and Judah saw and shouted and pursued the Philistines until they came unto the valley to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way of Sha'arim, even unto Gath, unto Ekron. And the children of Israel turned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistines and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistines, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host of Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, as thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, inquire thou whose son is this stripling is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. This is a man had a bloody head in his hand. Whoa! And Saul said unto him, whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite. And with that, lean not to thine own understanding, but acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he will direct thy paths. He will give you that armor that you need in the battle that you face, whether it be a battle of weapons or a battle of the mind or battle in law or whatever the battle is. God will do these things if you do not look at the conventional means. And with that, we will say peace.
Walk with me.